I don't want to be any different than them. Yes, I am different in being the fact that I'm a woman, but I also want to show other people that it doesn't matter whether you're female or a man. We can go out here and we can win and we can show speed and we can compete with one another. And it doesn't have to be so harsh per se.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View podcast. From the heart of Missouri's dirt racing scene, this week's guest is a driver grinding her way up one lap at a time. With a growing list of top 10 finishes, a standout heat race win at Macon Speedway, she is proving she can hang in there with some of the best in one of the most demanding forms of motorsports. Still early in her career, she represents the true spirit of grassroots racing, earning every inch, learning every night, and chasing that first big breakthrough moment. Please welcome to the show, Miss Haleigh Gross. Haleigh, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for making the time for us today. We're excited to have you on.
I'm excited to be on. Thanks for having me.
Let's just start off at the beginning. That seems like a good starting place. What first got you into racing and motorsports, and how did that turn into you actually getting behind the wheel of a car?
Oh my goodness. So, from as young as I can remember, my family's kind of always raced, particularly my dad's brother, Eddie. So, my uncle, he raced everything, mostly B mods and A mods when I was younger. And then he jumped into sprint car as I got older. But eventually that led my dad to start racing when I was about 13 or 14. So I didn't necessarily take an actual interest into racing myself until he started racing. And I think I begged for like 3 years to be in a car of my own. And finally they said yes. We had this big long talk about the expectations of what would come if I were to be a driver and how I would have to learn how to do the car work and the setup eventually and the tires and just the weekly maintenance that goes in and out. Not only that, but I had never been in a cart. I'd never been in another car before. So I would be looking at getting into a B modified. So for fans that are familiar with the modified division, that's the lower class. So I jumped straight into that and I just never looked back.
That that's one way to jump into it. Way to get into the deep end. Right there from the word go, huh?
Yes.
What was that first race experience like for you? Not just the driving, but the nerves, the atmosphere, just all of it, the whole package.
Well, I come from a heavy sports background. So growing up, I did every single sport but basketball. I'm a very competitive person. I've always been necessarily, or I would say athletic, not necessarily unathletic. So things tend to have come a little bit quicker to me. And that's not meant in a boastful way at all. It's just, I was always used to having things just right there for me to easily grab onto. So
Right.
the first time I ever hopped in the B mod, I was 17. I just graduated high school and we went to a play day here at our local track. At the time, it was called St. Francis County Raceway. And I think I went a whole probably 30, 40 miles an hour in this car. And so my parents were like, I don't know that she's going to get the hang of this, She's not pushing the gas. And honestly, I don't even know that I even went in there and tested my limits. I don't think I spun out one time. And
Right.
so the next weekend was another play day, and then the next day was a race. And so that next play day, I don't know what got into me within that week, but I just stabbed the gas, and my parents were like, "Well, where did that come from?" And I ended up doing pretty good my first night out. As far as strapping in, I think honestly, I was nervous getting up to the race. And then once I
Mhm.
strapped in and got onto the track, we always hear drivers talk about how their just brain clears. And mine just, I
Right.
totally couldn't think of anything else other than what I was doing in the car.
That absolutely makes sense. That's definitely something that I hear from a lot of drivers that I talk to. It's kind of like when they strap in, the visor goes down, everything leaves their mind except, the task at hand. Um, what point did it go from, oh, this is fun to, I really want to do this and I want to take it seriously?
It wasn't very long. I was in a BMOD class for the first year, and I mean maybe 12 nights, and that's really it. That first season, my dad chose to move me up to the AMOD class the next year because the competition was a little bit better. The drivers were a little bit cleaner, and he noticed that I
Mhm.
could hold a line, whereas some guys in the BMOD class couldn't, and they just wrecked each other, and it wasn't really giving me the seat time that I needed. So I would say sometime that next season. I mean, it only took probably a couple races before I was contending with some of the better guys at our local tracks, and I was like, I if I can get the hang of this, I really want to take this a little bit further.
Right. For people that have never been around dirt racing, what's the hardest thing to learn when you're first starting out in a modified? I've never been super into the dirt racing world, so from the outside looking in, it's always like it looks like controlled chaos. And you guys, you dirt racers, are psychopaths, and I mean that in the most nicest, beautiful way. But what have you found to be the hardest thing when you were first starting?
When I was first starting, I think the difference in the track. So whether it
Right.
was heavy versus slick that night, you have to constantly adapt your driving style. Um, in the beginning stages, I was not good at all on a heavy track. I'm a very throttle controlled driver. A lot of people say I would be good in asphalt because of
Mhm.
that. But I couldn't get the mentality of just hold it to the floor and try to turn left because if your car doesn't want to turn left, then you can't make it turn left, especially on a heavy track. So going from that to let's say a smooth track or a dry slick track at the end of the night is just a super
Mhm.
stark contrast for a driver.
For sure. How do you even begin to get comfortable in a machine that's constantly sliding underneath you? I kind of touched on it where I said it looks from the outside in like controlled chaos with you guys just slip sliding everywhere, all over the track, really. But how do you even begin to get comfortable in that situation?
At first, it was scary because I didn't necessarily understand all the aspects of the car and what the car needed and what I needed as a driver. And so I was kind of guessing. My dad was kind of guessing what I needed from the outside looking in, like, hey, maybe you're not driving it hard enough here. You're spinning out and you're pushing the gas too hard here, or whatever. But as I've raced this will be my sixth season, these past 5 seasons, I've learned that you need a little bit more side bite here. You need to drive the car in straighter here. So to a lot of people on dirt, especially if you come from like the asphalt world, it does look like we're kind of drifting through the corners. To us as drivers,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily feel like that. Unless you're running around the full on top or a really small track. We really drive our cars pretty straight nowadays. Um, because that's the fastest way around.
Right. What's something about dirt racing you didn't expect until you actually experienced it?
Something I didn't expect. I always heard people as racers say that everybody is family. And for the most part, I really think that's true. Everybody at the racetrack is your family. And we're blessed to have a really good group around us, a good other set of other racers and their family members and crew members. If we're lacking anything, we can go, a couple trailers down the next trailer and say, hey, do you have this? And they lend it to you right away. And they're not necessarily worried when they'll get it back.
Very cool. Very cool. Who would you say have been your biggest influences as far as your development goes, whether it be drivers, mentors, or even competitors?
Honestly, the biggest one that comes to mind is my dad. So from the outside looking in, to anybody that knows him, he's a huge teddy bear, and he'd do anything for anybody. But he has got to be the hardest person on me in a good way because he knows what I'm capable of. So if there's ever a point where I kind of slip up, he's like, "Hey, you can do better than that." And he pushes me to be the best that I can be. And I'm super thankful for that. As far as other racers, there's been so many people that my dad started racing with, that he's friends with, that are just all around mentors to me, because they also are so supportive of me, and want me to do the best that I can too. And that means a lot, especially from I hate to say it, predominantly male dominated sport, but there are a lot of women coming up through here. But in my general area, I'm really the only one in my class.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Something else that I touched on kind of in the introduction of the show was people see race day. You are kind of the epitome, in my opinion, of grassroots building from the ground level, and you're a one woman kind of show. People see race day, but they don't see all the work behind it. I saw recently on your TikTok, I think it was today, I saw on TikTok you putting the fenders on your car, like yourself, just you a screw, a drill, a bit, and some plastic. What goes into a typical race week that nobody sees?
Goodness, a lot of work. I think we do more work than we do racing, and that's the honest truth. Thankful to have my dad, because he does quite a bit as well with me, and he's a lot of the reason that I'm able to show up to the track each week. But like I kind of touched on earlier, I had to learn all of those things too, and that was a part of my responsibility as a driver. It wasn't something I could put on somebody else to do for me. So honestly, what that looks like is, Sundays or Mondays are usually the wash day after the races on Friday or Saturday. Throughout, Monday night all the way to Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what day of the week we're racing, or multiple days. We're
Right.
getting the parts, we're taking them off, we're making sure, the bearings are maintenance, and the oil doesn't need changed, and all of the bars and heims, they're free. Just set any setup changes you made over the weekend. You've got to kind of remember those. And if you're going to a different track, you've got to kind of put it back to a baseline, of what you know that you're probably going to need to show up with, whether you need to be a little more tighter there, or a little freer, or you needed more drive the previous week, just kind of those things. And not only to mention that, but also the tire work you've got to do, because, I mean, we go through tires pretty well. Pretty much all the time. Each night you race, you kind of you would hopefully bolt on at least one new tire. So you've got to
Right.
either re grind them and sipe them. We can't group them anymore, but that used to be something that we would have to do throughout the week. And just get all of those ready. And then, like I said, usually Thursday night is a load night. So we load everything back into the trailer that we took out. We load the car back in, make sure all the suit and the helmet and the face mask is washed, because those are important. You can't forget those. And just, yeah, on top of that, we've got the content. So, yeah, I do Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I know I'm forgetting one somewhere in there, but we've got to put the camera up too while we're doing all of that, so that we can show everybody just kind of what it looks like.
That is wow. Your plate is full, and let's not forget family. We still have a family to take care of too. So, my goodness, how much of this journey would you say is mental versus physical versus the all important financial?
Oh, goodness. I would say, I mean, obviously have to be physically capable to do all of these things. But you've got to be mentally strong enough to handle things, not only as a driver, for me as a female in the sport, but also mentally tough enough to get up and say, I've got to do this today. And I've got to go not only to my 9 to 5 job, but I've also got to do this today. And this has to be done by Thursday. So there's a lot of mental aspects that go into it. Financially, it breaks a lot of people. And I've witnessed it happen. If you don't have good sponsors and you don't have good support behind you, there's everything is constantly going up in price. I mean, gas prices for just regular gas have went up almost $2 within the past 2 weeks, and that's not even speaking on what racing is going up right now, racing prices.
Right.
So it's all financially tough, and I think all of that combined, it makes it hard for us all to keep racing, especially for the people locally that don't have big sponsors.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, every driver I talk to kind of says the same thing, where it's like, the financial side is it's the elephant in the room most of the time. If you're at that level, obviously you're physically able to do it. Mentally, that's it's a whole nother game. But that financial burden, like you said, is just ever increasing. The prices only go up; they don't seem to ever come down. So
Yeah, I mean, I think
kudos to you for handling that.
our tires are, I mean, depending on who you get them through, they're like $200 a tire, and we go through them a lot. So
Right. Goodness gracious. Well, have you had that moment yet? Obviously, you said this is going to be, year 6. Have you had that moment yet where everything just clicked and you can take that deep breath and just tell yourself like, "Yeah, I belong here."
honestly, I hadn't really had that until this past weekend. Um, I got a new chassis over the winter. We put a new motor, new to me motor in it. It's my dad's motor that he ran a couple years ago. We got refreshing, and he's like, "Hey, this needs to be ran. It doesn't need to sit here. Let's put it in your new car." Was kind of worried about that, but man, that thing, it's great. So this past weekend, I ran with Mike Harrison. If people know him, he's the guy usually to beat around our area. Definitely the stud of racing, I would say. I ran second to him. I'm sorry, I ran third. We were battling for second over the weekend in a heat race. And they called it on a white flag lap because a car spun. But I really think I could have gotten him on that last lap there. But that was kind of my moment where I sort of solidified to myself, I can be here. I deserve to be here.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you next. Is you've put together, especially recently, like you said, some strong finishes. You had the heat race win at Macon Speedway. What's the difference to you between running mid pack and breaking into those top spots consistently?
I think it shows that not only am I developing as a driver, but that we're consistently showing speed. It's no secret that my dad's my setup guy. I know a little bit about setup, but not enough necessarily to make the right changes all the time. So when we're at the track, that looks a lot like me saying, "Dad, hey, the car needs a lot more of this," or "This is what this car feels like," and we can kind of talk back and forth and banter a little bit about what maybe we both think it looks like it needs and feels like and that such. And to me, that shows that we're both growing because he drives as well. And he's consistently finishing up in the front too. It shows that we're both growing as drivers and just people in the racing world, and showing that we're
Right.
both gaining speed.
Oh, that is fantastic. What's next for you as a driver? Obviously, like we said, you're trending in the right direction, and that's absolutely important. But what are you focused on improving most right now?
I would say continuing to show more speed and to run up front with these guys. Like you said, I have a lot of top 10 finishes and features, even a couple top fives here and there, a couple top threes, but I would really love to be more in the top fives, top three, even feature wins coming here shortly this season. So that's what I'm focused more towards. Honestly, just seat time, seat time, seat time, because I've had a lot of it, but you can never get enough to learn.
Absolutely. You talked about earlier on being a woman in such a male dominated sport. That's obvious to anyone that's ever looked at an entry list in any form of racing, really. How important is it to you to be known as a talented race car driver and not necessarily a talented female race car driver?
It's really important to me because I have a lot of little girls looking up to me. And I
Right.
think that once you strap on that helmet, there's really no difference between you and anybody else. Anybody's got the capabilities. Anybody can go out there and do it. And I think that society puts so much of a, dare I say, stigma on male
Mhm.
versus female. And in these sports that are predominantly male dominated, I don't want to be any different than them. Yes, I am different in being the fact that I'm a woman, but I also want to show other people that it doesn't matter whether you're female or man. We can go out here and we can win and we can show speed and we can compete with one another. And it doesn't have to be so um, harsh, per se, if I outrun you or you outrun me, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I was talking to Sally Mott a while back, and she hearkened to that. I'm sure you've seen it. The Jade Avedizian commercial that's running right now, where she says, people tell me I'm fast for a girl, and she's like, no, 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 I'm fast. Period.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what we're striving for. Obviously. Um, what do you want fans to understand about you that maybe they don't see at the track? Is there anything?
Honestly, I think I would say that I show up to the track and I look like I've got a huge game face and maybe unapproachable at times. But if you come up to me, I'm probably one of the sweeter people that you'd meet. I'm there and I'm focused. So if you ever walk by and I look a little intimidating, I promise I'm not.
If someone does have the courage to come up to you and they said they want to get into dirt racing themselves, what's the first piece of real advice that you might give them?
Honestly, depending on where they're at in their want to get into dirt track racing, I would say, if there's somebody that that races, go around them and learn how to work on the car first. Rather than if especially if they've never drove something, because it's completely different than working on a regular vehicle or something else. Just spend time at the racetrack, kind of learn the community, learn how everything works, and then I feel like that makes a little more of a level headed entrance. Whereas if you just kind of buy a car and you show up and say you're from asphalt racing or you've never raced before, you kind of don't know what you're getting into.
Definitely. And you bring up asphalt racing again, and that kind of that piques my curiosity. Is asphalt racing something that you strive to move towards? Are you happy with dirt? Like, what are your goals? Obviously at the micro level, what are your goals for 2026? But then at the macro level, when you zoom out a little bit, where do you want to see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
So I touched on kind of just me getting more consistent and running in the top three,
Hmm.
top two, finishing and winning features. I would love to win a handful of them this year on a micro level. On a bigger scale, I'm happy with dirt. I always think dirt is going to be kind of where I default to. But if
Hmm.
somebody were to come along and say, hey, we have this asphalt car and we want you to hop in it, I wouldn't be scared. I have had a lot of people over the years tell me that my driving style does suit an asphalt car, and I'm not sure if it does or not. I've never been in one, but it's something I would like to see at some point. Um, I'm ready for racing to kind of take me as far as it wants to take me.
Okay, so maybe asphalt isn't something you strive towards, but it's not something that you would be against either.
Right.
Okay, I like that. Well, now we have gotten to my two favorite questions of the interview. It's my favorite two to ask everyone. Number one being this. Obviously, you're a very young woman, a long career ahead of you, a lot of laps to log still. At this point, not only of your career, but of life, how do you define the term success?
At this point in my life, I define the term success by, man, that's hard. That's a thought wrenching one. I would say just by being happy with being who you are, and being where you're at in life, not necessarily striving towards something that isn't obtainable at this moment in life. You have to learn to be happy where you are, whether that's good or bad. And that's probably been the hardest thing to learn. And especially with
Mm,
social media, I think it's something really hard to learn because we're constantly fed all of these realities that aren't necessarily true themselves either. So I
right.
think just being successful in your day to day life is you overall being successful.
That's a great answer. Last but not least, obviously, this is the Fans View podcast. Outside of racing, we're going to take that off the table. What are you a fan of?
I am a fan of, oh gosh, just like life in general.
Yeah, just what are you a fan of? Any shows, movies, sports, anything?
I'm a really big outdoors person. I don't get the time to watch a lot of movies or TV shows. When I do, it's usually something with like CIA, FBI, kind of interesting there. Um,
Okay.
but other than that, I mean, I like to fish. I like to be outside. I like to just be with friends and family. I'm just a huge fan of just being around people.
I love that. You are a people person. I can appreciate that. Well, Haleigh, this has been so much fun. I'm so glad that we could have you on today to talk a little dirt racing. I feel like we barely even scratched the surface. I could go another hour and a half with you. So you know that means you have to come back. We're gonna have to do a part two here in the next couple months. Um, you're gonna have to be a recurring guest. I hope you're okay with that.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
Let people know, where they can follow you, where they can, check everything out, Haleigh Gross related, website, socials, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so we do pretty much every platform. I run a Facebook page, Gross Family Racing. That's sort of me, my dad, and my sister. And then I have Haleigh Gross Racing on Facebook as well. Gross Family Racing is on Instagram, and then Haleigh Gross 3 is TikTok. And then we've got Gross Family Racing, which kind of covers all of my own podcasts and Wide Open and Personal, our own racing night to night, and anything like that. That's on YouTube, and then Haleigh Gross 3 on TikTok. I don't know if I said that or not. And yeah, we have a website, grossfamilyracing.com. I've got a category there. So I've got some Dome merchandise on there right now, from when I ran at the Dome this past December. And then we've got a Gross Family Racing spot as well. So go ahead and go check that out.
I love it. I love it. I glossed over the fact that you're a fellow podcaster. See, that's part two. That might even be part three. Podcasting alone can be its own episode because
Yeah.
Lord knows this is it's the wild, wild west out here. But I
Yes.
digress. Guys, make sure that you go give her all the love. Go follow all the socials. Check out her family's page. Check out her personal pages. If she's at a track near you, go show some love, buy some merch. Like I said, if you can't afford merch, if she's not at a track near you, those follows are always free. And since you're giving out those follows and subscribes, go ahead and follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. It's 2026. You know all the apps. I don't have to go through these. Haleigh, thank you again for making time for us tonight. Like I said, we're going to have you back on ASAP. Guys, show her some love, show us some love, and most importantly, at the end of the day, don't forget to call your mom.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.